Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. People may still join, but they'll catch up. So I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we are going to discuss using critical and creative thinking tools in community problem solving. Our presenters are Lynn Buckmaster and Martha Barlow, and they are co-directors from our Wisconsin Future Problem Solving program. Over to you two.
Okay. Well, welcome. I'm going to share my screen, and so we can get started with the presentation. Okay, so Lynn and I in Wisconsin have been working together for a long time, and together with Pat Schoonover, we learned a lot about thinking tools from Don Treffinger and other people. And so we spent some time, the three of us, working together to see how these thinking tools can be applied to the community problem solving program. So that's what we will share with you tonight. So as you know, the community problem solving process is based on a creative problem solving framework. Don Treffinger, who was working on this, had gotten up to 6.1. And if you've been involved in community problem solving, you will recognize the parts of the process as it applies there. So there's developing an area of concern, selecting an underlying problem, identifying challenges, then producing solution ideas, and finally evaluating those ideas and developing an action plan. There's quite a few different versions of what you might call the creative problem solving process, but they all have a similar kind of overarching organization, and that's what you would see on the left in this chart. First, no matter what creative problem solving process it is, the first section is understanding the challenge, then it's generating ideas, and finally preparing for action. So in creative problem solving 6.1, you can see the terminology that is used in their steps. If you have been involved with the global issues problem solving program, you would be very familiar with the steps of that program. And then the community problem solving process is very similar, except we start with developing an area of concern, and then the rest of it does match up with the global issues framework.
Okay, the reason for using thinking tools is we want students to understand the problem-solving process as it applies to community problem solving. And we want them to use the steps of the process flexibly as they work through their project. And also, we use the thinking tools because it lets students experience a lot of different creative and critical thinking that supports the problem-solving work that's done in community problem solving. There's two basic types of tools. There are generating tools. This is the more creative thinking or divergent thinking. It's where you're trying to produce new original ideas. There's more than one answer to come up with. In fact, the goal is to see how many things you can come up with. There's no judgment or criticism while you're thinking of ideas. So it's a more intuitive kind of thinking. Focusing is the critical thinking or convergent thinking that goes on. This is where you're analyzing and you're comparing and evaluating ideas. There are fewer right answers and you're trying to come to a decision. So there's a lot of judgment and reflection that's involved, and it's a lot more ordered. This is the publication that we developed. It's available at FPSPI Mart, and in it are a number of tools. We're going to show you all of the tools that are in the publication right here. So you can see how they're organized with each of the problem-solving steps. And then the thinking tool is listed, and also the type, whether it's a generating or a focusing tool. And for each of these tools, there is a detailed explanation on how to use the tool. There's a sample page of student responses, and then there is a blank page that students can use as a worksheet.
Okay, so we're going to start with a couple of tools for developing an area of concern. So this is, where students may have multiple ideas, or, you need them to look around your school, community, region, and come up with some ideas. But in the end, you need to focus on an area of concern. One tool that we can use to gather ideas and then take a look at them is called PMI, plus, minus, interesting. If you have several areas of concern to consider, this is a great tool for thinking through them. Here's an example of what plus, minus, interesting might look like. We imagine that a group of students has come up with 4 possible areas of concern that they might want to address: green living, tutoring students, relationship violence, and cyber safety. So if they go through and think about the pluses, minus, and interesting in each area, that can really help to focus. So let's look at green living. It could have many different facets. A minus is that some clubs at school might already be addressing this. A point of interest is, do we really know what green living is? Let's take a look at cyber safety. A plus on taking on this topic is that kids have more and more access to the internet with smartphones, so it's a really important topic. A minus is that a lot might depend on parents using the safety protocols on their kids' devices, and so we might not be able to make that happen. And a point of interest is, what types of activities on the internet are not safe? Now, of course, if you were working on this chart, you're not limited to one statement in each box. You can have as many as you want. So we're going to give it a try. Imagine that you are part of a group of kids and you're thinking about doing a topic related to food waste. And so we're going to be asking you to come up with some ideas for plus, minus, and interesting about food waste using the chat function. So if you would please open your chat if you don't have it open yet. And we'd like to begin with getting some of your ideas that could be pluses. What would be some good reasons to select food waste as an area of concern? And if you can put those in the chat, then Lynn will read some of them to me and we will put some of them in our chart. Do we have any ideas
We don't
coming?
have any ideas. Any ideas? What would be a plus of studying food waste?
We really need to have you interact with us on this
A
one.
very common problem.
Okay.
Affects more than just those who throw out the food. It affects the environment, greenhouse gas, climate change. Supply and demand is a comment. Food waste can be recycled.
Okay. Let's go on and come up with some ideas for what would be some negatives, some minuses about working on this. Some minuses or negatives about taking on food waste as an area of concern.
There are already compost machines out there. Many people are already involved in this. Collecting data might be an issue. Measuring success might be an issue. It affects only some countries or areas.
Okay. All right. And let's go on to some things that might be questions. I wonder, or this could be interesting, or maybe we don't know about this. What could be some points of interest or some things that, you know, you might not know about?
How much food waste is in our city? Could it be used as fuel? Could it be considered a positive and be recycled? What are we going to do with it?
Great question. Okay. So from that, you can see how you might work on a chart like this. And the interesting sometimes can point the way to like, these are some things we would need to find out if in fact we decided to go with this topic. Now, this isn't necessarily something you would do with a single topic, although you could do that, but it's more useful as a comparison when you're trying to look at multiple potential areas of concern in order to decide which one you might want to focus on. Okay, another tool that you could use to explore the positive and negative aspects of your area of concern is called From WIBI to WIBNI. So this one I'm just going to share with you, and we won't be actually working on it. But first you list the WIBIs, and that stands for wouldn't it be awful if? And then you come up with some WIBNIs. Wouldn't it be nice if? Then you look back at your WIBIs, your awfuls, and see if you can turn them into WIBNIs, nice things. So here's an example. If the area of concern is service for veterans, somehow supporting veterans, here's what a group of students came up with. And most of our examples are taken from actual student community problem solving projects. Wouldn't it be awful if, okay, and you can look at these different areas, home and family. Would it be awful if my brother came back from Afghanistan and he couldn't get help for his PTSD? At school or in the workplace, wouldn't it be awful if veterans can't find new jobs when they return? For the future career, wouldn't it be awful if more vets ended up homeless? And we know that that does happen. So in each of these different areas, you could generate, wouldn't it be awful if? Then the next step, okay, is to say, well, wouldn't it be nice if? Now these do not have to match up yet with the wouldn't it be awfuls. So it's better to just look at this column on its own. But let's be social and friends. Wouldn't it be nice if all vets had the opportunity for free, unlimited counseling? At school or in the workplace, wouldn't it be nice if veterans didn't have to worry about money right when they returned? For the future career, wouldn't it be nice if there was a big ceremony to honor all the vets each year on Veterans Day? Now, a lot of communities do that, but perhaps in this community, the students were not aware if that was happening. Okay, then final step then is to take the WIBIs and turn them into WIBNIs. So let's look at one of the WIBIs. Okay, my dad had suffered mentally due to his World War II service. Turn that into, it would be nice if all veterans were thanked for their service, perhaps publicly. My brother came back and couldn't get help. Wouldn't it be nice if he got free counseling for his PTSD? Social and friends. Wouldn't it be awful if a veteran in my social group was mentally ill due to his service? Turn that into a WIBNI. Wouldn't it be nice if I could effectively direct my friend to appropriate services? And so you'd go through each of the awfuls and see if you can turn them into nices. And sometimes you might have already come up with the nices on the final column, but many times you will come up with different nices here. So this is a way to take, this would be more if you've decided on your area of concern, okay, and you want to explore it a little bit more and have your kids really get deeper into the topic. So the two tools that we went through that you can use to help to develop an area of concern with your students were the plus minus interesting that we tried together and the WIBI and WIBNI that we shared. Now, in the publication that Lynn mentioned, there are a number of other tools that you can use to explore your areas of concern, whether it's exploring multiple ones or ways to come up with one of them. They are called desired future, current reality, a futures wheel, sources of data, and 5 W's and an H. So there are quite a few more in this area that you could explore in the publication. Okay, so I will stop sharing and I will turn it over to Lynn.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, the next step is to identify challenges, and you want to identify a variety of challenges related to the area of concern. So you're focusing on the most important elements of the situation, examining many sources of data from different points of view, and you're considering what you already know and what you need to know and what you want to know to understand the possible challenges. So attribute listing is one of the tools that you can use to generate many potential challenges. You identify 3 to 4 major elements of the object or the location, and you can use each attribute as a heading, and you can create subheadings if it makes sense. And for each main heading, you're going to think about challenges that relate to it. We're going to give it a try with this area of concern, that a park near the school has fallen into disrepair. And so looking at the attributes of the park, they thought of the 3 main ones: the playground equipment, the facilities, and the appearance. And then for each, they thought of some sub areas: that the playground equipment was broken, obsolete, and unsafe. The facilities had poor lighting, inadequate signage, and poor parking areas. And the appearance: rundown, poorly maintained equipment, and lack of attention to trash. So we're going to use the chat again. And we're going to start by focusing, whoops, excuse me. We're going to start by focusing on the playground equipment. So if you can think of a challenge related to the playground equipment, about it being broken or obsolete or unsafe or anything else about the playground equipment, put it in the chat and we'll list some of them on the chart.
Okay, waiting for some ideas.
It's like, so what if the playground equipment is broken or unsafe or obsolete?
What would be a challenge? What could be something that could be challenging about that? Oh, you know what? Okay, mine weren't showing for a while there. I am so sorry. Okay, it could be hard to fix it.
Oops.
So thanks for your ideas. Small kids may hurt themselves. You cannot play safely. Someone could get hurt.
Okay.
And the costs of fixing it could be a problem. Liability, who's responsible if the children get hurt? So, okay.
All right, let's focus on the facilities. Consequences of poor lighting, inadequate signage, or poor parking places.
Okay, some ideas for this one. What would be some challenges with the facilities? Poor lighting and so forth, that could lead to prone to accidents. If there's even lead to crimes. If it's poor lighting in a place that's hard to get to without signs, I would say, yeah, okay, could could attract the wrong crowds to hang out there, is what someone said. Might be hard, yeah, hard to find it. It might be inaccessible to the public, one of our panelists shared. Could be misunderstanding of the signs if they're not clear and hard to navigate. So, okay.
Or people won't go if they can't park their car.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned, you know, problems with the parking lot, or it might devalue nearby property prices and so forth. So.
Okay. Let's focus on the appearance, that it's rundown or poorly maintained equipment, there's overgrown grass and weeds, or lack of attention to trash bins. What challenges or results would happen?
Less business, fewer people coming to use it.
Less what?
Less business, fewer
Okay.
people or kids would come to use it. Somebody says in Australia, it could attract snakes. Okay. Not conducive to public use. There could be an environmental impact of an increase in waste. Safety hazards. Okay, so those, thank you for those ideas.
Okay. All right. These are just some samples of what students thought of for the playground equipment. You thought of some of them too. Someone could be injured. They don't want to go there because the equipment's broken. Even if things aren't broken, children probably won't like using old or obsolete equipment. Facilities, people might not be able to locate the park. Poor lighting, you said, could attract criminals or vandals, and reluctant to drive there because they may be damaged. The appearance, if it's unappealing, when people drive up, they may leave. They may tell others to stay away. And we thought of this one too, that trash and weeds can attract rats, raccoons, stray animals, or snakes. Okay. Another tool that you can use is called focusing on challenges. And this tool has two charts, and you complete both of them, and you use the results to determine which challenges that you might want to consider addressing in your project. And if you have many challenges, you can divide them into sets. So this is the area of concern was healthy lifestyles. And some of the challenge ideas that they came up with was that obesity is a national concern. Recreation technology is not aerobic. Kids lack the knowledge of a healthy diet, misconceptions regarding the cost of healthy food. Adults don't make time for healthy habits. And our town has few exercise facilities. So for each of those, they look at it for how important. A, is it earth shaking? B, is it moderate? Or C, is it low importance? And then they rank them for how big of an issue. A means it's a huge issue. B means it's kind of a regular issue, and C, a small issue. And then how soon must I or we act? A is yesterday, B is soon, and C is anytime. And then you think, if no actions are taken, how will it change? A, it will get worse. B, it will stay the same. Or C, it will get better. So you can see that the A's kind of indicate a more critical type of challenge or situation. B, kind of in the middle, and C, perhaps of lesser importance. The second chart, you'll see the same challenge ideas listed on the left. And then you're asking yourselves, can I or we act on it? So yes, maybe, or no. And then you consider, do we want to do that? Yes, maybe, or no. And if you checked yes or maybe, do I or we need new ideas? Yes or maybe, or no. You could put in this column as well. So for identifying challenges, we tried attribute listing, and I showed you focusing on challenges. An additional tool to try that's in the publication is called a cross impact matrix. So I'm going to give it back to Martha.
Okay, we're going on to the next step in the problem solving process, which is to select an underlying problem. Now, this is a very key step. Okay, it's important. Students may have explored and have all these ideas about this really large area of concern and lots of challenges, but they can't address them all. So often they need to narrow down their focus in their underlying problem. They still want to have a major issue that is derived from the challenges that they came up with, okay? And they're going to be thinking about, how might we accomplish something related to that, an action goal. We don't want the kind of thinking that says, well, we can't do that because. So hits and hotspots is one way to start with your challenges and then work towards an underlying problem or yeah. So the way this one works is that from a list of challenges, multiple people, so if this was a team of kids, they could each do this separately, identify which are hits for them. And on the next slide, we'll talk about what does that mean. Then you organize those challenges into clusters called hotspots, and you can see where are the most hits. So an idea might be a hit for you for any of these reasons. Maybe it just seems exciting or workable or really relevant, or it might, it's really a challenge we should address, intriguing. And then if several of the hits seem to have a similar concept, they can be shared together. So we're going to give this a try. So Deb is going to open a poll, and in the poll, there are a list of challenges related to the elderly. So this would be if you're taking the elderly as your area of concern. So we would like each of you to select 4 hits. Don't do more than 4, but you should be able to, go ahead and pick out 4, read through them. How many are there altogether?
There's 9.
There's 9 altogether. Okay, so make sure you're reading through all 9 of them, skim through first, and then pick the 4 that you want to select. We'll give you a few minutes to work on that. Make sure that after you've made your selections that you submit them. Just a few people haven't put their votes in yet. Okay, I haven't seen that number go up for a while, so perhaps we could end the poll here. So Debbie will end the poll, and then she will be sharing the results. Okay, once we take a look at the results, we can categorize the hits into hotspots. There's a couple of ways to do this. One is you can look and see which ideas had the most hits and do any of them relate to each other. And the other one is to put them into clusters, ahead of time and then add up those hits. And that's what we're going to do. So 1, 4, and 8 were about respect for the elderly. 3, 6, and 9, social interaction gap. And then 2, 5, and 7 were a generation gap. Okay. So I can't see the poll results, but hopefully you can, Lynn and Debbie.
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay. All right. So for 1, 4, and 8, do we have a total number of
Yeah, a
hits?
total of 40.
Okay. There were 40 hits for respect for the elderly. And Debbie, social interaction, 3, 6, and 9.
There were 42.
Okay, close. And generation gap, 2, 5, and 7.
46.
Okay, so these are pretty close. Okay, and so you might want to, do some other exploration about which of these you want to do. With 46, 42, and 40, you can't automatically say, well, we're going to deal with 46. Okay, so it might be good to then discuss why did people pick what they did, because you do want to kind of come now, taking your whole big topic of elderly and then focusing down onto one of these areas is what we're talking about when you're focusing down with an underlying problem. So here's an example. Let me get back to here's an example of an underlying problem. If the social interaction had the most hits. Because older residents may lack regular visitors and the younger generation may be losing a connection to them, that part is called the condition phrase. The action goal or keyword phrase is, how might we increase the social interaction between youth and the elderly in our community? And the last section is the purpose. Why do we want to do that? So that both generations will have positive experiences with the other. Now, hits and hotspots is a great tool, and it can be used not just with, working on your underlying problem, but other areas. Lynn, you had one that you mentioned that you do it with.
Yeah, I was working with kids at a school, and they knew they wanted to focus on some kind of project within their school. And so we had a big chart, and I had them brainstorm all of the issues that they could think of that they were concerned about in their school. And then I gave each student 5 stickers, and they had 5 hits. They could go up and put their sticker next to the 5 things that really resonated with them. And then you could clearly see where the hits are clustered. And so it helped them focus in on the ideas that were the most important to the group.
So once again, a way to use it to develop your area of concern as well as underlying problem. Okay, another tool that you can use to develop your underlying problem is dancing with words. This one is kind of fun. So first, you'll take your action goal, your keyword phrase, and it will go at the top of the page. And then separately, you would generate other possibilities for the verb and then other possibilities for the object, and then mix and match. So let's take a look at how that would work. All right, so let's say your action goal was, how might we increase student involvement in volunteer activities? So ignoring the object and just looking at the verb increase, what are some alternatives for that verb, that might have some similar kind of, push forward? So you can see there's create, develop, enhance, enable, expand, improve, produce, strengthen, and recruit. Then ignoring the verbs and thinking, okay, we were looking at student involvement in volunteer activities, but what are some other things we could, look at as far as volunteer activities go? Well, the number of volunteers, the groups that are served, the leadership skills, awareness of their value, appeal of the experiences, rewards, the age of the students, matching them to student interests. So those are different things that could be in that final box there. And then you mix and match. So you might say, how can we expand the number of volunteers? How can we strengthen leadership skills for volunteers? So you pick something from the first column, put it with the second column. And when you've done a bunch of those, and this is kind of fun for kids to do, you know, to come up with a lot of different options. Each different option you come up with would give you a slightly different flavor of what you might be working on. And so for kids to then look through and say, well, is our first one here of increasing student involvement in volunteer activities really the one we want to do, or do some of these other ones that are along the same lines seem like they might be more workable for us? So another way to develop your underlying problem. And I know that sometimes community problem solving kids don't have as much experience with this if they haven't been involved in global issues problem solving. So this can be really a great way to get kids involved with developing the underlying problem. So in this section, we practiced hits and hotspots, and we looked at dancing with words. In the publication, there's another tool that works with your underlying problem called improvement goals. And so that would be one that you could explore. So I will now turn it back to Lynn.
Okay. So the next step is to produce solution ideas. You want to generate a variety of ways that you can improve the area of concern by addressing your action goal of the underlying problem. So you can use flexible and insightful thinking to identify many relevant and promising possibilities. And you can reflect on your research and investigation of the area of concern. So the first tool we're going to talk about is called Scamper. It's a kind of a checklist, and each letter of Scamper represents a different possibility, kind of to steer your mind in a certain direction, and you generate ideas for each of the letters in any order and as many as you want. So S stands for substitute. You can substitute one thing or a person in place of another. Combine, bring things together. Adapt, adjust something to suit a condition or a purpose. Modify, magnify, or minimize. You can alter or change the form or quality. You can make something bigger. You can make something smaller or lighter or slower or less frequent. Put to other uses. Use it for something other than what it was originally intended for. You can eliminate something, remove, omit, get rid of a quality, get rid of a part of something, get rid of a whole something. And R is for reverse or rearrange, to place opposite or contrary to the original position, or turn something around, or change the order, or make a different plan. So we are going to try this with—
I think you have an example first,
Oh,
don't
I'm
you?
so sorry. That's right.
Yeah.
So this is an example for just a fun activity, ways to scamper through a clothes hanger and come up with different ways to use it. So substitute, we could make a round hoop instead of a triangle and then hang it and throw bean bags through. Or combine, we could put two hangers together with twist ties for a stronger hanger. Adapt, you could join many of them together and then collapse them to save space. Modify, magnify, or minimize, double the size, push it into a square and use it for a picture frame, or make it round for blow giant bubbles. Put to other uses, you can use it to sweep under the washing machine for a lost item. Eliminate, cut off the bottom to save money in production. Or reverse or rearrange, turn the hanger upside down, attach to the shelf bottom and hang things from the hook.
And go your next slide.
Right. Oh, my next—
Yeah.
This, right?
Well, you had never mind. You had
Okay.
another slide, but that's
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
It's okay. Go
Okay,
ahead.
we're going to have you try this again using the chat. And we're going to focus on in what ways might we improve the physical environment of our school so that it is a more appealing place to learn, work, and visit. So that's the focus that we're going to use. So using the chat, let's just see if we can get a few ideas for the S of Scamper, substitute. What could you substitute? Use something in place of another in our the physical environment of our school.
Sometimes this one is easier if you just can look over the whole chart and just pick one. If you want to do that, you could just put the letter, like this is an E idea or this is an A idea. Either way. If you're going to do substitute, put an S so we know it's a substitute idea.
Okay.
Okay, S could replace stairs with escalators. Ooh, that would be fun. Okay, S could substitute the colors of the painted walls. Do feel free to jump around the chart and pick any letter that pops into your head. Looking for a few more ideas. They don't have to be substitute. Rearrange, put the classroom spaces outside where possible.
Okay.
Substitute, this was an S, it said more air conditioners. Comfortable beanbags substituted for chairs. Let's see if we can come up with ideas for some of the other areas. CAMPER. And somebody said a comfier place.
A what?
I'm not sure. Maybe we can have a comfier and easier place to focus. And I'm not sure which one that was to go in. So modify, let's say this is a modify. We could have some desks with high tables instead of low. For combine, we could bring older and younger students together for peer tutoring or mentoring.
Okay, we get rid of.
Modify the use of the school canteen outside of meal times. So I think the school lunchroom or canteen, modify it for other uses outside of meal times. Modify, make the play areas bigger. Let's say adapt for this one. Sometimes things can go in more than one area. Adapt the desks so they have fidget things on them. I like that one. Put to other uses. Use the playground equipment for physical challenges at breaks.
Use what? The playground equipment?
Playground equipment for physical challenges. Put to other uses, use the library for games and social connection, not just studying. And eliminate bullying.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you kind of get the idea in that. You just kind of let your mind go crazy. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just kind of a brainstorming tool that gives you a little bit of focus.
I'm just going to throw out the one last one that came in here was the ability to modify the temperature according to the climate. You don't have to go back and have to go back and put it in, but
here's the slide I skipped that we were going to give that a try. Okay. But we will go on. Another tool is forced relationships, and you can use this to jumpstart your thinking when things kind of slow down a little bit. You just really kind of get crazy with stretching your brain. You use random words or pictures. and you make a creative connection between each word or picture and a solution idea. So you could have lists of things like a list of holidays, a list of toys, a list of animals, a list of colors, a list of anything you can think of, machines, whatever, or you can use pictures. And so, for example, if we were just still trying to improve the physical environment of our school, the Band-Aid might suggest covering up something, like covering up this ugly wall with a mural that the kids paint, or flowers might suggest, along with the Band-Aid idea of covering up, maybe the drain pipes that we have that look pretty ugly, we could plant flowers all around them. Or the list of holidays, maybe the 4th of July suggests lots of bright, vivid colors. And so we could paint the walls, these bright, vivid colors, or we could paint the lockers, bright, vivid colors. Here's an example of how might we increase opportunities for social interaction between elders and teens to better establish mutual understanding. And so these are just examples, 4 pictures, and you just try to, whatever wild and crazy connection it can suggest in your mind. So the bike, provide transportation to take elders to functions teens can do with them, like concerts or plays. The clock, just taking time to care for the elders, or we can make a schedule where one teen meets with one elderly person once a week, or interview elders about what they'd like to do with their time. So the whole idea of time. The book could suggest having teens read to elders or vice versa, or we could interview elderly about their life experiences and compile it and write it up in a book for the library. The flag, maybe somebody thought of Betsy Ross and a sewing club for the elderly, or the stars on the cloud, the flag, to feature a star elderly person each week in some way. I used to have idea cards just that I would make just with pictures from catalogs or wherever I would get them. And when we were stuck for ideas, we'd just deal out these idea cards and see if the picture could trigger some kind of a solution. So that's another fun one. So we looked at scampering, which is kind of a checklisting tool, and forced relationships. And 2 other tools that are in the publication are attribute listing and something called a morphological matrix. I will stop sharing and turn it back to Martha.
Okay, and before I share my screen again, I just want to comment that, like, the forced relationships is something that I learned from Lynn, okay, as we were training coaches and so forth. And, you know, I'm one of those persons that looks at these pictures and like, I have no idea, I have no idea. Okay, but after time, after practice, you get better. And I did find that with my students, if we practice these brainstorming things a lot, they wouldn't get as stuck all the time, actually. And they kind of would let their creativity flow. So it's really important to practice some of these things because kids can get better at it, as can we adults. So,
and when you look at a picture, you can also use that other tool where we thought about attributes, and you can not, you know, what are the attributes of a bicycle? You know, the wheels go round, and is there something about the going round that suggests a solution? So you can get a little more sophisticated.
okay, so we will go on. Okay, so now you've got a bunch of solution ideas, and it's going to be important to do the second bullet point here, reasoned and deliberate decision making when you're deciding which of them to do. So in community problem solving, you'll also often be trying to implement multiple solutions, but you may have come up with more than you can handle, okay? Maybe they're not all great ideas. So it's important to have some tools to think through what are the, you know, what's good about our solution ideas. So one tool, okay, that we can use to compare and evaluate 4 to 6 solution ideas. So some tools work better for different numbers. This one called paired comparison analysis works quite well with 4 to 6. Sometimes you can push it to 7 solution ideas. 1 to 2 or 3 ideas, it doesn't work for that. And if you get too many, you get too bogged down. So 4 to 7, let's say. So what you will do is compare each solution idea with each other solution idea and determine how much stronger one is than the other. And then you will add the strength numbers for each idea to determine, which is best or what the rank order would be. So here's the key verb phrase or the action goal. How might we promote knowledge of the outdoors for students? Now, you can use criteria or not with some of these, but it's always good for kids to have, what might we be thinking of when we're thinking of a good solution? So some criteria we might use would be, which solution will build the most knowledge of the outdoors? Which solution would have an impact on the most students? And which solution can best be sustained over time without needing to be updated or maintained? So those are some criteria that can be kept in mind when you're comparing solution ideas. Now, here are 5 ideas that kids came up with. We could make trails into a walkthrough board game. We can increase the variety of plants, and construct visual trail guides. We can create a picnic area to be used by students who have earned it through good behavior. We could create learning stations that are based on outdoor literature. We could put benches in a circle for group learning. So these are some of our solution ideas. Now, in paired comparison analysis, you will take each of those ideas and compare them to each other one in an organized fashion. So in the box upper right is the criteria and the first 2 solution ideas, A and B. Trails as a walkthrough board game and more plants with visual trail guides. So if we compare A to B, we first say, well, which one do we think is better, A or B? And in this case, we circled A. So we think A is better. The second step then is, how much better is it? Is it way better, much better for a 3? Is it somewhat better, a 2? Or is it a close call? We had trouble picking one. And so then you put in the points. And then the next box will show you comparing A to C and so forth. So we're going to give this a try. And let me show you what with a poll is going to look like. So I'm going to leave this up so you can see what all of the solution ideas were. And then in the poll, there'll be a number of questions like the one shown in the red box. So it will say A or B, and then you look at the list to see A or B based on the criteria, which is better. A is much better, somewhat better, close call, or B is much better, somewhat better, close call. So I think there are 10 questions. So go ahead, and you don't need to spend too much time agonizing over which ones are better or how much better. Just try to make a decision. Go through each of the questions, and here you're only choosing one answer for each question. And then make sure you click submit at the end. Sorry, I hit my mouse.
Someone asked which criteria you're focusing on.
Okay, let me back up one, I think, if I can. Which will build the most knowledge of the outdoors, have an impact on the most students, and best be sustained over time? Yeah, I don't have that. I guess I don't have that and the solution ideas on the same page.
Looks like we have about half of the people done.
Mhm.
I don't see the total changing very much.
No.
Should we stop it?
Yeah, I think we can probably stop it because it's been almost 6 minutes. Okay. So then Debbie will share the results.
They are being shared. Do you see them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't see them, but I'm glad you can. Okay. So we start by filling in the section down here. So we will have a lot of different opinions on these comparisons. So Lynn is just going to tell me which one got the most votes, and then we'll put that one in. So for A against B.
It was A.
Okay.
Um,
I'll just bold it. And how many points? A was much better.
Well, let's say somewhat better. That got the most.
Okay, so a 2.
A 2.
All right.
Okay.
A to C.
I would say C.
There should just be one response that had the most votes. Do you know what I'm saying? Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've got a number of different.
No, all you do is look at, there's 6 responses. Which one had the most votes?
All right. A is much better.
Okay, for this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so 3. A to D.
All right. We've got a number of ties.
Okay.
So let's say D is somewhat better.
Okay.
1.
Somewhat better is a 2. close call is one.
Right.
Okay. A to E.
A to E. A is much better.
Okay.
We don't have A to F.
Oh yeah. Okay. We don't have that many. B to C.
B to C. C is somewhat better.
Okay. B to D.
We have a tie.
So
let's
just pick one.
D is, let's call it a wash with a 1.
Close call. Okay.
A close call. B and E, we've got E is somewhat better.
Okay. And
C or
C and
D?
D.
C is much better.
Okay. C and E.
C and E, we've got C is somewhat better.
And D and E.
We have D is somewhat better.
Okay. So then we look through and we see how many points did A get. So A got 2, 5,
3.
8 total points.
Mhm.
Okay. B, 0. I see no votes for B. C, 2, 5, 6, 7. D, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mhm.
And E, 2. Okay. So then we can see that our rank order is this one gets the highest. Nope, sorry, said that wrong. This one is the highest, second highest, third highest, fourth highest, fifth highest. Okay, so this is a way to then, say, okay, so if there's two ways kind of do this with kids. They could either complete these charts separately and then compare their ideas, or they could work in pairs and then compare their ideas, or they could work as a whole group and try and reach consensus on each one. Sometimes that can be more time consuming, but then you would say, okay, it looks like we should focus on making the trails into a walkthrough board game. And then maybe we want to also do this picnic area. And if we have time, we can think about the literature or the literature learning stations. So, it's a way to help them sort through their solution ideas and decide what they want to do. Okay. Another tool that you can use for analyzing your solutions and making some decisions is called ALOU, advantages, limitations to overcome, and unique potentials. So you would use this tool to analyze and compare 2 or 3 solution ideas. This one doesn't work as well for 5, 6, 7 ideas because it just gets too lengthy, but you could do it with that if you wanted to. So with ALOU, let's look at the same problem. How might we promote knowledge of the outdoors? And the same criteria, and we'll look at 2 solution ideas, the literature learning stations and the board game using trails. Those actually did come up high, 1 through 3 on our list. So what you would do is first look at the advantages of the literature learning stations. Okay, we could have activities for different grades. We could get more in depth. What are some limitations and how would we overcome them? Reading levels might not work for all. We could overcome by working with teachers. We'd have to protect the materials, and we can overcome that by working with high school tech ed teachers to create protective containers. Unique, it could be fun to find interesting literature about nature. And then another unique potential is maybe it could lead into nature lessons for the teachers. And the same thing with the trails, making the trails into a walkthrough board game. Students might think it's more fun as an advantage. Limitation, the teachers might feel there's not enough content. We overcome it by doing follow-up lessons. Unique potentials, we haven't seen a board game in nature center, so it might be an interesting option. So in this section of evaluating and thinking through your solution ideas in order to choose which ones are worth following through with, we looked at paired comparison analysis and ALOU. There are some additional tools in the publication to use. One is developing the criteria Okay, and that's an important one if you want to think, how can we think this through? And the evaluation matrix, which is used by global issues teachers. So I will turn it over to Lynn.
Okay. Okay, so the last step is develop an action plan. So you explain what the project intends to accomplish. You're going to determine the tasks and the timelines for implementing your plan, describe the impact the action plan will have on the area of concern, and consider ways to build support for possible solutions. So one tool is called sequencing with SML, and you're going to use this to record specific steps to implement your action plan. So you identify the goal or activities that you want to accomplish, and you determine your time frame. So S is for short term, and we have medium term and long term, and you list the tasks in each frame. So short term, anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. So it's always good to have something that you can accomplish within the first 24 to 48 hours. Medium term might be anywhere from 2 weeks to a couple of months. Long term, this would be the total amount of time that you need to accomplish your goal. And a good thing to do as you place your actions within the appropriate time frame is just identify a person or an agency that will be doing each action. So we are going to do this. We're going to give it a try. And our area of concern is to improve a community park. And we've decided that we need to obtain the support of the town board. So we want to go to a town board meeting and to get their support to improve the park. But we're going to imagine that we just found out that we can't get on their agenda for 2 months. So 2 months is our time frame.
Nope, back up.
Yes. All
Okay.
right. I'm so sorry. All right. So we're going to use the chat again. So let's just talk about our short term. So these could be completed from 1 to 2 weeks.
And they've got a 48 hours one on there.
Okay. So contact
to get on the agenda, but we already know we can't get on it right away.
We can't get on it for 2 months. So what might we want to do in the first couple of weeks?
We're thinking ahead that, okay, we want to be prepared with a great presentation to the town board 2 months from now about improving, getting permission to improve a community park. So what might we do is in the next couple weeks? Any ideas? Okay, look for local media who can help advertise and promote. Generate solutions on possible ways to improve so we can share those ideas with the town board. I'll jump in and say maybe take some pictures of the park so we can have visual evidence. Yeah. Create the materials you want to share. So in addition to the pictures, maybe we want to do some other materials. How about go? This next one, let's put this one in 2 to 5 weeks. Work on a dynamic multimedia presentation. I think that works well for the 2 to 5 weeks instead of 1 to 2. What else might we do in the 2 to 5 week time frame? We could follow up with the local media.
Maybe we could solicit testimonials from kids who don't want to play in the park.
Okay. Confirm the time and date for our presentation.
Should we go on to
And-
long term?
Yeah, let's say the last couple weeks before our presentation, okay, what do we want to make sure we do? Practice with the team, practice the presentation. Decide who does what in the presentation. Make
Great.
sure all of our materials work. Excellent one.
All our materials, equipment work?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And we know we could put in there once we've given the presentation, talking over how well it went, and do we need to follow up? And confirm everyone's availability. Okay, I think that's probably good.
Okay. So that just helps you focus a little bit more specifically on the things that you need to do. And here are some of the things that this team thought of. So short term, we had all the tasks that they needed to improve the park. The town board meeting, find out how much time they have for the presentation. Medium, arrange a date and time. Group the list of tasks into clusters, develop specific requests to present to the board, identify the strongest reasons the board would have to support the project, along with possible questions or concerns they might have, prepare possible responses, develop an outline, and long-term, develop all the graphics and hand out some presentation materials and
That dynamic multimedia presentation.
Yeah, that's right. And determine the responsibility, who's going to do what, and rehearse, and then present and analyze when you're finished. Another tool is called Assisters and Resistors, and you can use this to help you identify areas of support and obstacles you might need to overcome. So you kind of think of the 5 W's and an H: who, what, where, when, why, and how, for your assisters, and how you can use them. And then you do that for potential resistors. So this is again for the project on showing veterans the respect they deserve. And they thought their assisters for who could be veterans and community members, and how to use them. They could ask veterans for their stories. They could find letters and memory objects, support Veterans Day, the community members could. The what they identified were community groups, veterans organizations, how to use them, find out how they can provide support and if they will. The when was during school or Memorial Day, and they thought of using, having a parade, perhaps a cemetery ceremony, and having veterans as speakers. Where they thought of the senior living facility in their community and also school. So they thought of having special events to honor them, students visiting with them. Why? Because veterans are a part of history. And so using the teachers to incorporate the whole issue of veterans and their contributions into the curriculum. And how? By getting to know them. So students could visit the facility with adult chaperones, or they could connect vets with community activities. So they do the same thing with resistors. Who are the resistors and how can we overcome their resistance? So we could think about for who, veterans with PTSD or community members. So how to overcome, we could learn how to approach the veterans through the caregivers. We could interview veteran family members. We could search veteran websites for information and opinion of vets. For what, the passage of time and losing veterans as they grow older is a resisting factor. So how to overcome that, get started as soon as possible, or see if there are any veteran data banks in our community. The issue of when, delays mean we lose more and more veterans. So we could try to meet with caregivers within the next 5 days, or we can ask veteran family members for suggestions to speed up the process. There may be restrictions on visiting as a resisting factor. Way to overcome that would be to explain the project to those in charge of the facilities to gain their support or permission for visiting, or suggesting ways to communicate with vets. Some teachers are busy and some vets might not be willing to share. That could be a resisting factor. We could might overcome that by convincing the teachers of the importance of this whole issue, or talking to the principal, and giving them, the veterans, the option of sharing their stories. We're not sure how to proceed. So one thing we might do would be to talk to those who implemented veteran programs in the past for tips. So we have practice sequencing with short, medium, and long-term activities that we need to do. And then we talked about assisters and resistors. So this just kind of summarizes all of the thinking tools that are in the publication. And they are listed here as they are presented for each of the steps. But as we mentioned before, it doesn't mean that you have to use these only with that certain step. Now, there are some changes in community problem solving. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, those changes have already gone into effect for this year. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, these will be in effect starting this coming school year. And the reason that things have been changed is that it's natural that when you're doing a project, things are going to develop and evolve and change, and the sequence of steps may vary or be repeated as you go through your project. And so the new procedures are designed to better reflect that. So
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 minute because somebody wanted us to go back a slide.
okay.
Oh, with the entire list of stuff
Okay.
right there. Yeah, that's just a list of all of the thinking tools that are in the publication. And yeah, and just a reminder that for each one of those in the publication, there are directions on how to complete it. There is a completed example, and then there is a blank template that you can use with students. Okay, go ahead. I didn't want to lose that.
That's all right. So now you're going to start with the project proposal, and this is a planning or guiding document that captures the original analysis of the area of concern and what the students anticipate that they're going to accomplish. So it establishes the project's vision and framework for the project. It describes goals and the actions that are planned. It shows the use of the problem-solving process in the inception of the project. It's submitted mid-year to the affiliate. It's up to 2,000 words, and it's not rewritten or modified once it's submitted. And that's because then they will do a project report. And this communicates the actual project that was achieved when the project was implemented. It talks about the modifications that were made and the students' reflections on the whole process. So it shows how the problem-solving process was employed throughout the project's implementation as the need arose to adapt, expand, or modify the project's goals, actions, and efforts. It shows the actions that were actually undertaken and demonstrates the impact of the project, discusses the obstacles or changes that were made to the plan. It's submitted for the affiliate bowl, and it can be up to 3,500 words. The supporting materials present evidence of project actions. So it kind of proves that you did what you said that you did in your 2 reports. We used to have what we call the scrapbook and an addendum, and that is being replaced by a portfolio, which is a maximum of 40 pages or 20 back-to-back pages or 40 slides. It chronicles the efforts that the students made and verifies the claims that are made in the report. It's visual evidence of the actions and accomplishments. There is a promotional video up to 3 minutes in length, designed to promote the project with a presentation that promotes the project and its goals. There is still the display, just like we have now, that communicates the goals to the audience. And there is also still an interview that provides evaluators with a deeper understanding of the project, and it allows the students to share their passion for the project and describe the actions that they took after the project proposal and the report were submitted. Now, these are all required for the international conference. Whether they're all required in your affiliate is maybe different. For example, in Wisconsin, we don't require the promotional video or the interview.
Then they have to, yeah, then they have to go, if they're going on to international, they have to make one. So
right.
Okay, so this chart is just kind of showing how the thinking tools are flexible. So the top list is all of the generating creative thinking tools. The bottom list is the focusing critical thinking tools. And although they are presented in the publication in one area, like in challenges or in solutions or whatever, this shows, some possibilities for how a tool can be used in multiple places. And in fact, we realized as we were looking at this chart that they can also be used in some places that don't have X's. Okay, so there could be even more uses than we originally thought. So we want to also still encourage the concept that community problem solving is flexible. And that flexibility applies to the project proposal, putting that together. And it also applies then to actually implementing the project. So let's take a look at a couple of these. The final one might be something that would happen when you're putting together the proposal. So maybe the team has brainstormed a bunch of solutions like we were just looking at for supporting veterans in their community. But then once they try to write up a potential action plan, they, and they're looking for ideas for that, they discover that a lot of their ideas are already being implemented and some of their ideas won't affect very many veterans. So maybe they want to go back to their underlying problem and refocus that, okay, and see if they can come up with a different slant that will give them another direction to go, and then change their solution ideas. So if that happens while they're doing the project proposal, they can go back and they change things. But once they submit the proposal, it doesn't get changed anymore. However, that doesn't mean they can't continue to change any of those ideas. So if we look at, let's say, the third box, suppose they're working on it now, and they're once they get looking at their list of solutions that they had submitted, and they think, oh boy, we've got way too many, okay. And even when we use some of the criteria and so forth, it seems like we've got a lot of ideas. So maybe our underlying problem is too big, okay, and we need to go back and pull it down, refine it a little bit, and then whittle down our solution list, and then look at evaluating them to decide which is best. And even though we're now changing that, we don't go back and change it in the proposal. We explain in our project report what happened as we worked on our project and where we made changes. So we hope that you'll have a chance to try the tools with the process. We really think, sometimes community problem solving students have not had as much experience. They may have done a lot of global issues and be really familiar with all these processes, or not. And the tools can really help them to dig into some of the steps of the problem solving process that they might not be as familiar with. You can have fun with them. And it just really takes practice. Okay, the more you practice with some of these tools, you're not going to go through a project and use them all. Okay, so pick, I think my kids are struggling with this, I think this tool would help them out. Or I really want them to look at a whole variety of area of concern ideas, and so I'm going to use this tool and ask them to brainstorm, and then we'll use this tool to think them through and so forth. So you can just pick and choose what would be helpful to your kids, whether they're working on the proposal or actually the implementation phase. So we've got maybe 4 more minutes. Okay, if anyone has any questions, we can take those. But I think Debbie posted that the session will be available for viewing on the virtual platform tomorrow. If there are other people that want to see it, or if you want to see parts of it again. And whoever's watching, you should have received login access information already. Anyone have any questions besides that one? And Debbie responded. And if you're not sure where that access information is, maybe you can send a message to somebody. I'm not sure who about how to get in. Any other questions? So we really appreciate those of you who jumped in with all those chat ideas. Okay,
yes, thank you.
That's just very helpful, because we just don't want it to be us coming up with all the ideas. Okay, and so that gives you a flavor of how it actually would feel, okay, to be brainstorming and coming up with these ideas with a group. So yeah, and somebody here says if they haven't, done this before, okay, that it was interesting and helpful. And that's when especially, if you're a coach and you're not, that familiar with community problem solving or even global issues, that a lot of these tools can give you a structure for really getting something done.
Someone asked, is this only for global issues?
No, our presentation was focused on community problem solving, where you put together a project proposal and then you implement real life solutions. You absolutely could use many of these tools in training global issues kids who are writing the written booklets. However, while they are writing their booklets, they don't have time, okay, to do these tools. So this would be more in a training mode. Just when you're practicing ahead of time, that you could use some of these. Okay, I think that's all.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very, very much. And
Good
thank
luck
you,
with your
Debbie.
problem solving.
Thank you, Lynn and Martha, and thank you, attendees. We appreciate you watching this session. Hope you're all enjoying the international conference, and go check out the 3D virtual platform. And as I said, you will be able to watch this this session and all the other sessions by going into the viewing room. That's not the name of it. You'll be able to find it.
Like an auditorium or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Screening room. That's what it's called.
Okay, yeah.
Great. Very good. Well, thank you all.